It's Friday, February 16th, 2024. Start out with our normal show segment, which is to say you can go to patreon.com/Ozone Nightmare and support the show through the Patreon platform. You can go to the show homepage found at, well, if you go to ozonenightmare.com and select the podcast link, that will take you to the show homepage. Or if you want to go direct, that's ozoneshow.com, which is the link in the comments tag for every show, in case anybody ever doesn't remember. It's in the I don't know how many people even look at metadata anymore. I always make sure I keep it up to date, and it's always uniform, and it's always done. I don't know if I mean, just because I know some platforms publish it and some don't, so it's better just to do it. And it's, you know, it's a best practice way of doing things. So I do it. And on that page, you will find some rounded squares on your right with various different ways to support not only the show, but Lando and I as individuals, whether it's clicking on the little book for Lando's Amazon author page, or the little skull, which will take you to my art Linktree. I also wanted to mention something that I did not anticipate, but the Tarkovsky double feature video on YouTube has an astonishing number of views for our channel. 252 as of this recording, which is...
Yeah, good for you.
I think by far... Well, okay, I have a suspicion, because I know how I am, right?
Yes.
I don't know if you're like this. I don't know, every 2 weeks, every week, whatever, I will look for... There are certain things I will just look for on YouTube and watch everything I can on them, like Deus Ex, the original video game. Yeah. Anybody who does any long-form analysis on Deus Ex, as long as they can speak in complete sentences, and they don't use some kind of terrible, hard, weird sound effects that make my ears want to bleed, I will watch it. I don't care if they're bringing anything new to the table or not. I just want to hear somebody talk about one of my favorite games of all time. Stalker the movie is the same thing. I will look for a Stalker analysis, and as long as the person can speak coherently and, you know, isn't flashing, I don't know, gore in my face or something where it's trying to make me sick or whatever, or, you know, throwing the camera all over their room, then I'll listen to it. And so I wonder if that's part of this, because Stalker is one of those movies. Solaris less so, but Stalker is one of those movies that does draw people because of what it is and how respected it is. So I wonder if some of it is the fact that it is a 5-hour-long show about Solaris and Stalker.
You know what? You just reminded me of something I wanted to share with you.
Yeah.
It's very funny. So.
And it was only blocked in Italy this time, so I got lucky.
Oh, wow.
Only Italy.
So I is a long about way of getting to what I wanted to tell you, which is I was watching West Wing with my wife.
Ah, yes,
we just started watching West Wing. We're like still halfway through season 1. It's a fun show, and I was making fun.
I meant to ask.
Yeah.
Is season 1 in widescreen or is it in the 4:3? Is that black bars on each side?
No, it's widescreen.
Well, then they zoomed it. It's actually in, unless they've I've seen it both ways.
You know, I haven't really noticed much of a difference, to be honest with you.
Frankly, I think they shot it because it does go to HD natively later. I think they shot it to be able to be zoomed. So I don't think I was just curious because I've seen it in both formats on different services, depending on, because it bounces around like, every show does now. It bounces from one service to the next service to the next service, and every year it seems to be somewhere different. And I've seen it both ways. Kind of like Frasier. Frasier's the same way. On Paramount Plus, it's zoomed in, and it does look weird in some episodes. But then when I bought it, it is in its native 4:3 until season 10, which is where they actually went HD. They actually changed the formatting and shot it for wide. So yeah, I was kind of curious how you were seeing it, because I agree. I don't think with West Wing, because I think it was shot with an eye for, HD is coming, and probably we want to be able to present this full. And so I think they kind of wisely planned their blocking a lot better than some shows where people's heads get cut off. So I was just curious. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
So I was watching the, I guess we're halfway through the first season, and there's an episode in there where the president is in like a used bookstore, and he's going through all these titles.
Oh yes, the one. Yes.
Yeah. So, and I was laughing at him because I was like, I thought it was very funny, and then my wife reminded me. She's like, "Asshole, you're reading the life of Diogenes," and I was like, "Yes." I was like, I laugh because I'm not unlike, how you're like, who are you in this show?
Now, that's the one where he secretly goes to do the Christmas shopping and he's getting the books, right? That's that one?
Yes. And the reporter and the PR lady wants to bring a reporter in.
Yes, and he's the PR lady. God,
so
the PR lady is so. Do you not hate that woman so much?
Yeah. So, but
don't worry, you won't have to handle her for long, because they disappear her ass savagely at the end of season 1.
But how you were saying to me, like, what character do you find yourself identifying with?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Unfortunately, the president and I have a lot in common. As far as our intellectual interests. Yeah, so anyway, my wife reminded me of that I was just as much of a nerd as the president was, and I laughed about it. Yeah. But brings me to this thing is that I was reading my Diogenes history.
Wait. Did they already have the episode where he's talking to Josh about the national parks?
Yes, they did. Yes.
If that's not one of those good places I need to bury your body. What? What a show. I do love the West Wing because its writing is so sharp for a good portion of it.
It's very quick. Yeah.
It's good. Go ahead.
So Diogenes hated Plato, right? Was it right? Diogenes hated Plato. He and like I said, this is coming around to where it makes sense. I actually took a screen cap of this page because that was important. Yeah, so Diogenes hated Plato. Plato was 25 years his senior, but he didn't like Plato because Diogenes felt that he lived the philosophy that he preached, whereas he felt that Plato did not. So he caricatured, I'm quoting from this book, The Life of Diogenes, he caricatured Plato as an incorrigible chatterbox, mocked his ostentatious generosity, castigated him for the unnecessary comfort of his home, and called his school a waste of time. At which point, this word comes up. So, in Greek, the word diatribe is to lecture, right? Yeah. But the word catatribe is to waste one's time.
Okay.
I thought that was such a cool word that is not in usage anymore.
Catatribe, yeah.
Catatribe, because we're always like, don't give me your diatribe, and it's like, it's a diatribe if you feel like you are being lectured, like, effectively. It's a catatribe if it's wasting your time, and I'm like, man, my life is full of tons of catatribes. Like, catatribe should be like the word of the moment as far as I'm concerned. How many people are catatribing you? Online, in the news, TV, like, it's essentially a lecturing waste of time.
Sure.
And I love the word, but I realize that because it is an obscure word, you it's the whole oxymoron. Oxymoron is the correct pronunciation of oxymoron, but if you call someone an oxymoron, people will tell you're saying it wrong. At which point you realize that the reality is language is however way people use it. And if you use too many words that people don't know, then you're not effectively communicating. But I do love catatribe. I think catatribe is an excellent word.
It's a great word.
Because, sometimes in this show I find that that we are lecturing, but overall, we're kind of an entertaining waste of time.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, how did you describe your podcast? It's an entertaining cattle trap.
That's yeah. You know what? I like that because it would actually make somebody have to discover what catatribe means.
Being like, it's a tribe of cats? What?
So it is accurately describing a waste, but doing so in a way that benefits you by adding knowledge to your brain.
In a weird way.
That's not the most oxymoronic way, or oxymoronic. Is that how you're supposed to say oxymoronic?
It's supposed to be, oxymoronic, yeah.
Wow, it does. Okay.
It's weird, right?
Well, here's the thing about that word. Oxymoron is a much more satisfying word to me in how it sounds than oxymoron. However,
essentially, you're calling something an oxmoron. You know what I mean?
But oxymoronic sounds stupider than oxymoronic or oxymoronic. Yeah. That sounds better. So what would it be? The singular nature of the word is stupider sounding in its accuracy, but the descriptive version of the word is more lyrical sounding coming off the tongue. So it is yeah.
Language is funny.
Yeah, oxymoronic sounds much cooler than oxymoronic, but oxymoron sounds way better than oxymoron.
Well, because because you like the moron part. That's why.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I guess I just like to say moron.
That's what you like, the moron part. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
It's like no, you're being a fucking oxymoron. It's like,
oh boy. You are unknowingly presaging a astonishing set of reviews that's coming later.
Oh, okay.
I
I just wanted to share my nerdiness with you. That's all.
Well, speaking with the language idea, as the Spanish speaker of the two of us, even though I am quite fluent, I don't like to bring it up. So I defer to you in things because you have the ability to say it in a way that sounds more fluent than me. Even though anybody who's ever watched any of our gameplay videos knows I speak better Spanish.
I'll be honest with you. I only ever speak Spanish these days to my mother and my cats.
Well,
the cats and I.
Somebody.
The cats, in fact, when they hear me speaking Spanish, they think they're going to get treats, so they come running over.
Oh.
And really, what it is that I like to insult the cats at length and detail, and I do it in Spanish.
So the Spanish word for chicken is pollo.
Pollo.
Is that?
Yeah, it's pollo.
I always like to say polo.
No, polo is.
I know polo is a shirt. It's a game for rich, spoiled kids. I know. Okay, that's what I thought. Because I always hear
the double L,
El Polo Loco sounds better.
the double L, it makes an a sound.
Yeah, I guess it throws me off because the single L is L and the double L is oi. Or
we have other letters.
Yeah.
Pollo.
I mean, all languages are like that.
Well, all languages have weird letters. Yeah.
Actually,
English is still such a hard language for non-English speakers to learn because of its.
Oh, it's a fucking stupid language. Let's be honest.
It's because it's a predatory language. We've talked about this before.
Well,
but English is very difficult because the rules are the rules till they aren't. Oh, and by the way, we're going to take on as many foreign words as we can because we don't have words for those things.
Well, there's that, and then there's also the fact that we have words that have such. I mean, maybe I don't know enough about other languages, so maybe this is true of all languages, English or not. I don't know. You could tell me if there's anything like this in Spanish, as far as you know it, because like the word sense. You have no idea what I'm saying when I say sense. That could mean a bunch of different things, be spelled differently.
Oh yeah, because it could be dollars and cents,
right? Or it could be
I sense an evil in the room. Yeah,
or it could be a smell. I mean, it could be three different things in spelling.
Oh yeah,
is that the same in Spanish? Is there words like that in Spanish?
No, in Spanish.
See, because it's not fucking stupid. That's what I'm saying.
But in was it Japanese? In Japanese, I know that there are phrases. I learned a little bit of Japanese, but not enough to matter. I know in Japanese there are words that when you it's the way you say them that can mean different things.
Okay, but that still has a difference, whereas in English the way I say sense will never give you a clue what I'm saying.
I know that there's words in Spanish that I can't translate to English because this is the whole sometimes other cultures have a word for something, an idea, and that there is no word for that. Like, what is it in German? Was it Schadenfreude or something like that?
Schadenfreude.
Yeah, which is like they have a word for that, which in English is like, isn't it like the enjoyment of watching?
It's pleasure through the suffering of others, or something like that.
The bad fortune of others, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like they got a word.
Well, isn't that
that.
like, I don't know if this is this true that the Eskimo
They
people
have
52
yes.
names for snow?
No,
or
no, it's
something?
52, but they have a lot of words for snow. But when you learn about what the words are, because I was actually really curious about this, it's like hard packed snow, crunchy
Yeah,
snow,
no, but
powdery
it
snow.
makes sense.
But they have
So, yeah.
specific words
Yeah.
for it, you know.
Right.
So yeah, I would love to learn a third language, but I'm not entirely sure I know the two that I know already. But I was saying to my wife, I was like, it'd be neat to like learn. I'd love to learn like a Scandinavian language. Just fucking take off into those mountains.
Yeah.
But yeah. English is weird. All languages are weird. I was trying to explain to my kids, it's like, listen, language is just a bunch of sounds that we all agree upon. It's what it really comes down to. Because
Sure, well, of course.
I guess their teacher was trying to explain to them that, they said like, why is something called the way it is? And the teacher was like, well, that's just what they call it. You wouldn't like it if they call it this. And I was trying to explain to my kids, I was like, because we were talking about rose water and toilet water. And it's like, they don't call toilet water rose water because there's no roses in it. But they only call roses because at some point a group of people sort of unofficially agreed that that's the sound you would make for that thing. We are cavemen grunting sounds and interpreting them. And we're usually pretty good until we get to things like happiness, sadness, and more abstract concepts. Love. You can have 50 people in a room all say I love you and mean 50 different things. That's where we have a lot of trouble. But yeah, we're just agreeing on these sounds that we are grunting. Sometimes very, very, melodiously.
Sure.
But it's like, yeah, these are just agreed upon sounds, and they could just as easily become something else. You and I both know, having watched language kind of transform, that there are words that go away and there are words that come up. I mean, listen, catatrib is no longer a thing, but diatribe is.
Right.
And it's like, it's fascinating the words that go on and the words that do not.
Yeah.
I know that there's a big argument about what the plural of octopus is because technically it's a Latin word, right? And I think they said like if it is a Latin word, then shouldn't it be like octopodes or something like that? Yeah, and it's the whole it was a Latin word, but then it got Anglicized, and now it's octopus, octopuses or whatever. It's like octopi sounds really good. But yeah, language is so strange because it is just sounds we agree on to instead of having to point at things constantly. But and then there's always new words happening and there's always words going away. You know what? 200 years from now, Google will be a verb for searching for something, and I don't think Google will exist anymore.
Oh no, I will be very surprised if that term sticks around. I don't think so. I think that term will phase out. I already hear less people saying it than they used to.
Interesting.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not laying money on it or anything, but I think
my kids used the phrase the other day, and they've never used Google in their lives.
Oh yeah. See, I hear people just saying search for. Just do a search for it. I hear that a lot.
Listen. I have no problem with with Google going away.
Yeah, I don't either.
I do love the fact that to this day, when anyone refers to X, they have to say X, formerly Twitter.
Oh, I
don't.
don't.
I sit there and I say, "Oh, Musk, that name change is really working."
No, I do. In fact, the most recent late night in that first part, when I said Twitter because I'm not calling it that, and Paris completely agreed. She said that is correct. And I'm like, damn right. And she's a tech reporter, so yep, I defer to her.
I think it's so funny. It's like no, people don't like your name change, man.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna go to Elon Musk for a while. But that is a good giveaway to somebody who thinks that they are so important that that their presence and their desire supplants basic marketing 101, which is when you have a recognized and marketable name, you don't just change it to something that is stupid.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if he'd called it Twitter X because this is the new Twitter, it's totally extreme. Right. That might have stuck better. But just calling it X, like, well, why don't we just call it P?
Yeah.
But I mean, this is yeah. Anyway, we don't need to get on Elon Musk. I was
Nope,
just using it
nope,
as an
we'll get
example.
right back off it.
But I have a brief movie review for you before we get into your stuff.
Good.
Very brief.
Good.
I watched The Marvels because that's on streaming. Yeah, and you know what?
Before you say anything,
Yeah,
I have now that all the, that it's past the being in the news and everything, I have seen a lot of a settling to a middle ground on that movie where people are like, it's fun and empty like a lot of Marvel stuff.
Okay, so I read nothing about Marvels.
Well, when it came out, if you remember,
Marvels.
it was seen as a huge failure, and Marvel's.
Oh,
losing,
yeah.
It was the first one,
They were
I think,
like,
that lost big money.
It's a shitty girl movie. I do remember that, yeah.
Well, not only that, but it did not. I don't believe it performed anywhere near.
I thought it was supposed to be a mini-series. Was it supposed to be a mini-series? And then they changed it to a movie? Or was it always supposed to be a movie?
Miss Marvel, the series, led into the Marvels.
Oh, okay. Well, I watched the Miss Marvel series. I enjoyed it. It was something different. I watched it with my kids. I mean, that's the thing. So much of my TV is stuff that at this point, I'm watching with my teens.
Yeah.
Or my tweens. Who the fuck knows what they're,
Sure.
Whatever. But I watched it, and here's the thing. Was it a great Marvel movie? No, it's not some kind of fucking classic. Was it fun? Yeah, you know what? It was a fun space movie.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing with me is that there's Marvel movies that are clearly like some kind of superhero movie, right? And then there's Marvel movies for me. What's that?
I said most of them now.
Yeah, but then there's other ones that for me are just kind of space movies. Like with this one, they dealt with time portals and the walls of crossing into other dimensions, and they were in spaceships and they were running around to weird planets. There's actually a planet there where everyone speaks in song, which is very silly. The whole movie is it's like they were trying to make a teen like Guardians of the Galaxy-esque flick, where you have a team that comes together, and they're running around space, and there's a whole herd. Honestly, there's a moment in that movie that I did laugh my fucking ass off, which is that they have to get 300 people off of a space station, but most of the escape pods are gone. And at this point, they've realized that the ship is full of the space station they're on has hatched like a fuck ton of flurkin, because there's a whole time space portal thing going on, which is where their eggs kind of appear from. And they get the idea, Fury gets the idea, let the flurkin eat all the people. We'll get the cats into the last remaining escape pods, and then when we get down to Earth, we'll fucking shake the cats till they vomit the people up. Because flurkins are technically portals. They're not eating you. Like, you're going somewhere. And having Fury basically herding cats around a space station so they eat all the crew members, I thought that was genuinely funny. I enjoyed the movie. Was it great? No. Was it fun? Yeah. Do I need to see it again? Probably not. Will my kids watch it again? Probably. And I think that's kind of where I'm at with a lot of movies, where it's like, did I regret the time I spent on it? No. Honestly, my biggest problem with that movie, I realized watching it, Captain Marvel is too skinny. They have a scene where she's like in a tank top just walking around, and I just kept thinking to myself, honey, you got to eat something. You got to eat something. And especially since Monica Rambeau is like a kind of jacked black lady standing next to her, and I'm like, yeah, it's like Brie Larson. I don't know whose idea it was to like waif you out here. I was like, come on. I was like, you don't even need to get jacked. Just have a sandwich. But maybe that's just my own. I prefer thicker ladies, I guess.
Sure.
It just looks like unhealthily skinny.
Yeah.
But whatever. That's me. Beyond that, no, it was I guess I'm at a point in my life. I'm not invested enough in any of this shit for it to actually get to me. Maybe if I cared, maybe if it was like a major part of my reality, I would give a shit. But I have so many more important things to think about that, like, as long as the movie doesn't actively treat me like a total fucking idiot and or insult me, like, do something really insulting where they're like, at the end of this movie we decided that racism is the correct path forward, or some bullshit like that, right? I watch them and I go, yeah, you know what? That was fun. Do I need to see it again? No, probably not, but I had fun. Listen, there's amusement parks. Like, those little mom and pop amusement parks you find out like in like the Midwest or like backcountry type stuff. You know what I'm talking about?
Sure, yes. I know exactly what
you're Yep. Where they got like in New Hampshire's got a ton of them. They got like a log flume and like a bunch of like wooden roller coasters that are probably going to kill somebody one day. You go to one of those and at the end of the day, you walk away and go, was this a great amusement park? Not really. Did I have fun? Yeah. Do I need to come back? Nah, not really. And there you go. There's a review for you. The Marvels is like a New Hampshire amusement park. It's worth going to if you're there. Do you need to go out of your way to visit? Not really. Will you enjoy it while you're there? Yeah. Will you forget it? You know what? You'll forget some of it. You'll remember the scary wooden roller coaster and how soaked you got on the flume ride. I'll remember them using the Flurkin to get people off the space station and the musical sequence, which was like a little weird but funny. But I'm not invested enough for it to hurt or bother me. And I think that's my general position with a lot of these franchises at this point, which is that I'm not invested enough anymore in those realities that they bother me. I didn't even watch the last Star Wars. I realized that the other day that I still haven't
Rise
watched
of Skywalker.
Yeah. Rise of we want to squeeze the money out of this. And here's the thing, I like Daisy Ridley. I actually do like her, and I like the character.
Well, I will watch whatever the movie that she's going to make. I'm curious what it's going to be. If it sounds interesting, I'll watch it.
Yeah, I just wish they did more with her. But I read.
Well, that's what I'm hoping is this upcoming one. Now that they've gotten rid of all that stuff, hopefully they do something new with her, and then I'll be interested.
And the Obi-Wan series, staying in the world of franchises. You know what? I enjoyed watching it. There's things in there that I thought were really cool, but it was very unbalanced. And at times I felt like it was not sure whether it wanted to be for me or for my kids, that kind of thing. But in the end, I'm not invested enough for it to matter, and I think I know Scorsese at some point was going on about how superhero movies are destroying cinema, and I don't agree with him. I don't, but I do believe that there are movies that are cinema, and there are movies that are popcorn.
Yeah, I think him saying,
and you need both.
He was focusing on the front end of something, which is not really that. Superhero movies are not killing cinema because superhero movies don't come out of nowhere. It's the machines behind them that are like, this is what people are going to.
Yeah, they don't want to fund. Yeah, they don't want to fund other stuff. Right. But the thing is, cinema, like any art, is going to happen whether there's money or not. Because if you've got artists with cameras, they will figure out how to make that fucking movie if they've got to do it with nothing. I
completely agree. I did a 5 or 2 on this because a couple of different people that on YouTube that I actually generally agree with on a lot of things and like their movie reviews and their opinions, both within a few days of each other, I think, had these videos where they're, I'm afraid for the future of movies. I'm like, shut up. Movies will survive. There's Kickstarter, there's Indiegogo, there's independent filmmakers.
And there's always a crowd.
Give me a fucking break with, I'm scared for the future of cinema. No, you're not. You're
here's
looking
the thing.
for traffic.
Listen, there's movies that, there are always going to be trash movies out there. But you know what? Everybody watches trash movies sometimes. And there's going to be movies that are high art. But listen, there comes a point where I'm kind of sick of high art. I just want to watch something that's not going to make me feel horrible about the universe. Listen, Snowpiercer. Snowpiercer is a fucking amazing movie, right? But I don't want to watch
miserable movie.
I don't want to watch Snowpiercer again.
Well, this is funny timing. You say this because I didn't think about to even mention this on the show until you just said that. There was a book that I started to read called The Water Knife. And
I think I vaguely remember this.
Yeah, okay. I gave up on it at 30 and a third of the way through. I went, this is so depressing and unrelentingly bleak. I read to have a good time. I read for enjoyment. That doesn't mean every book has to be happy beginning to end, but this book was just misery. It was like reading The Road. I'm not reading The Road. I don't give a fuck.
Is this the one by Paolo
Yes.
Bacagaluppi? Okay.
Beautifully written. The writing was very good, but it was also just so depressingly hopeless that I got to a point and I went, I'm going back to Neuromancer now. Because Neuromancer is a fucking theme ride compared to this. Because it was, I mean, to be fair to the book, it paints what is a very possible future if the water runs out, and does seem like something that probably some places in the world will experience. Whether it's going to be America or not is hard to say. They'll just suck the water from us somewhere else. We'll just eat everybody else's stuff. And it just got to a point where I'm like, I don't want this. I don't want to read this.
I'll tell you what,
I'm good.
There's a book I read in college that I really wanted to stop reading it. It's one of the most depressing books I've ever read. It's called Rickshaw.
I've heard of this book.
Yeah. It's by Lao Shi. It is such a sad, bleak book about somebody's place in, what year was it this book take place? It's
it says earliest 20th century Peking.
Yeah, earliest century Peking. Okay. It is
depicting the dehumanization of a worker who both represents and is victimized by a sick society. Oh, this sounds delightful.
Oh, I read that for my English lit undergrad, and I remember I got to the end of that book and I was like, why did you send my head there? And it's like, well, the idea of literature like this is essentially to say, hey, this is what that feels like. You may never be in that culture, but that culture exists. Experience it, so that when someone tells you to do something about it, maybe you'll do something about it, right?
Yeah.
And I totally get it. It's the whole, some things you have to experience. I experienced it, and I never want to experience it again. Nor do I want anyone else to have to experience the reality.
But you know what? I understand that mentality, and it's like I read The Culture of Make Believe, which is a savagely depressing nonfiction book. Yes, it is horribly depressing, and it did realign the way I looked at things.
Oh,
it did change some stuff.
Simulacra and simulation. Jean Baudrillard in general completely changed my relationship with the nature of reality.
But there is also something different about a nonfiction thing. Something like that, I'm more like, okay, this is for my benefit.
So the problem is you thought you were getting some fiction, some enjoyable entertainment fiction. Yeah. And you got something that was just so bleak. Yeah, and there's stuff like that. You know what? Warhammer is really bleak to me. People love Warhammer, but like Warhammer is so bleak dystopian to me to read that like I just get tired of it.
Yeah.
You know, and like and Cyberpunk, people have said to me that Cyberpunk is kind of bleak and depressing. I'm like, it's not, because it's so now that when you read Cyberpunk, you have to remember that though you are in a bad part of the world, there are other places where it isn't like that, where it's more normalized. Like in Neuromancer, you're dealing with a criminal who's at the end of his rope, trying to pull off a big heist. But that's like watching, Heat and thinking that everybody in the world is a criminal wanting to rob a bank.
Well, but to your point, the thing is, though, that Neuromancer and Cyberpunk in general, while largely dystopian and full of a lot of things that are depressing, is not unrelentingly and oppressively bleak. There are, like Snow Crash has a lot of happy, funny moments. Neuromancer has... Case gets back the ability to go into the Matrix, and he's thrilled about it, and he's,
People can live reasonably happy lives.
Yeah, because Case, at the beginning of Neuromancer, it believes that he will never again get back what was taken from him. He is he thinks he is permanently destroyed, and finds he's not. Now, I'm not saying that makes the book all smiley faces and happy dances, but it's not unrelentingly depressingly bleak.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, there are aspects of it that are very depressing and bleak.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It's not the whole thing.
No, misery is not everything, and honestly, that is why there are books that I understand you walking away. What is it? The Age of Innocence. I put that book down. Mainly because I was disgusted by the main character.
I think this is It's been quite a while since I just actively stopped reading a book.
Yeah. But that's healthy. You know what that is? Yeah. That is maintaining a certain level of mental health. It's reading something and going, you're taking me to a dark place. Too dark. I don't want to spend time here anymore.
Yeah, I didn't feel any joy in reading it, and I don't think you should.
Yeah, and here's
even
the
House
thing.
of Leaves, which has been frustrating, but I've stuck with it. I'm just reading it slowly, but
Yeah.
it's still intriguing. It's still interesting. I'm still having a good time, even when I struggle against parts of it. So that's different than something where I just actively felt bad reading it.
Well, yeah,
like,
that's
reading, I'm like, ugh, I don't feel
Philip
good.
K. Dick. Late Philip K. Dick got that way, where you're reading him and you're like, this. There's no hope here.
Yeah.
and
Some of that
really,
can be very tough.
And really, what you're feeling is that the paranoia and the mental degradation
with
Philip K.
his
Dick.
stuff. What helps offset that is that it is often set in what feels like a different reality. Even when it seems grounded, it never really. I don't know. PKD stuff never feels like the real world to me. I always sort of read that.
Some of it doesn't. Some of it doesn't, but some of it
none of it does for me because I always and I think this is just maybe this is a mental shield I created for myself after I read a few of his things where I started to just think, okay, it was almost like, in Neuromancer where he stims into Molly and he's seeing everything as her.
Yeah.
That's how I am with his books. I'm like, okay, I'm putting my brain into his, but it's not me. I'm seeing the world as him. And there's like a separation wall there where I never feel, it never gets me that bad. I know it slams you for a while.
Yeah, it does. That's why I kind of had to give up. Like, I'm very particular now about the titles of his that I'll still read. Because I'm like,
I don't read all of it.
I can't spend time here.
I think the only book of his I regularly reread is Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Which honestly is
lightweight
one of the most
compared
benign
to
of his books.
Yeah, it's lightweight in terms of the paranoia overload.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are moments of hilarity, and I think that's what's so funny about him is that even in his books that are the most depressing, you occasionally get a moment that causes you to like laugh out loud, like in Valise when they blow a hole through the Messiah's head.
Yes.
Yeah, that shit's hilarious. But either way,
But the minute you stop laughing at it, you're back into such a morass.
But then you're like, oh god, you killed the Messiah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
it could be heavy.
Yeah,
but so I gave up on that book. I tried.
There's a book I want to read that I just discovered. I found it by accident. It's called Starter Villain by John Scalzi.
Oh, that's I read his. What book did I read by him? The Kaiju Preservation Society. I read that.
Oh yeah, you might like this one. This is basically a divorced substitute teacher living with his cat in a house his siblings want to sell. All he wants is to open a pub downtown. Then his long-lost uncle Jake dies and leaves his supervillain business to Charlie.
Well,
and I was like, oh, that's fantastic. That sounds like a fun place to start.
The funny part about that is I was on a podcast with Scalzi.
No, really?
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Yeah, about Kaiju Preservation Society. Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, he did his other book, Red Shirts, was really big.
Yeah, Kaiju Preservation, or KPS, it's the only one I've read of his. I know the name, but I never read anything, and that came up as a book, and I read it, and then I was on a thing talking about it, and then he came into it.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, because what was the thing I was asking him about?
You do get around you.
So I magically do get around somehow. Yeah, it's strange.
See, now all you got to do is figure out how to turn this into a business.
Yeah, that's never gonna happen. Listen.
Shit! I forgot to tell you about my weird dream.
Oh, good.
God. I had a dream that some weird, rich Elon Musk, like super rich guy, called me up and wanted to hire me on the grounds that he had heard the podcast and thought that I would be a good fit in his company.
If that's not the tip off to you being in
and I was like, no. And in the dream, I kept he offered me like a ridiculous amount of money, but we had to move out to the Midwest where his base of operations was, and the money was just so it was like an astronomical amount of money. It's the money. Sure. We should find out. We should definitely do this, right? But the funny part is that the dream was about us getting ready to move, and then every time we were telling people that why we're moving, they'd be like, "Wait, so he just wants to hire you because he listened to your podcast?" And I kept being like, "Yeah, I know, it's pretty weird, right?" And like the whole dream, we couldn't figure out if it was like the money was real, like the money was in the account, so like we knew that there was that, but we couldn't get over the idea this guy had just decided that for some reason my personality was going to work for what he needed, and it was like some high level position in his company making like decisions about shit. It was very absurd, the dream. I forgot to tell you about that.
Yeah. I just in the chat posted the link to the show. I actually am stunned that I'm listed as a guest. John Scalzi and Joe Esposito. My name is on there. Which is
he's a really great writer.
Oh, it was a fun guy. I mean, it was. I actually think I asked him two smart questions.
I'm glad that he's a fun guy. I always hate when really good writers turn out to be like, monsters or maniacs or depressed, or something like that. We had this conversation about comedians. Where like there's a lot of these comedians that in real life, if you met them, they're like really sad or they're really glum or they're not necessarily the most fun people to hang out with because they've got a lot of darkness behind them. Writers are the same way, so it's nice when you meet one and they turn out to be like nice and fun.
Oh yeah, no, he seemed like just an everyday guy, normal guy, which was great. Didn't have any pretension, anything like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So,
well, how can you? I would say that, but that's me. I was about to say, how can you have pretension as a writer? But I'm some kind of genius. My books, like
especially somebody who's successful and published multiple books. Oh, sure they can. You know that. There's lots of them. But yeah,
so
Culture Preservation Society was good. I like that. That was a pandemic book, and it's very.
So the water knife. The water knife is off the list.
Yeah, that's. I'm not going to bother. I'm finishing that. Nope. I can't even imagine what I'd want to. I'd be in a mood to. No, I'm good. Too bleak. Too bleak.
Yeah. You can have a certain amount of bleakness, but you got to balance it out.
Yeah, like I said, I don't need all my books to be
like The
happy.
Road. I won't read The Road. I don't even want to watch the movie.
No, that's what I'm saying.
It's so
it's just
bleak.
why.
Yeah.
It's yeah. I mean, I
you know what? I am over end of the world movies. I'm over the apocalypse. I'm over all that shit. I want to focus on not having the end of the world happen.
I'm not over the apocalypse, but I don't have any desire to live in a miserable apocalypse anymore. I don't think in your head, Fallout isn't miserable apocalypse. It's post-apocalyptic, but it's
okay.
Fun.
Hold it. Well, yeah, and I was going to actually mention that earlier. I mean, Fallout. If you were actually there, Fallout would be pretty would be pretty awful. But beyond that,
if you grow up in that world, maybe not. I mean, us as a modern people,
Yeah, there are still. Yeah, I mean, there are still people. There are still good guys. There are things to avoid.
They rebuilt New Vegas, and it looked like it was old Vegas.
Places were rebuilt. Yeah, So no, it makes sense in that respect. Yeah,
Wasteland had fun places.
Wasteland did have some funny places.
It had very depressing places too. But it was fun. That's the balance that you're talking about was there.
Speaking of games, before we get any further.
Yeah.
Joe and I. Joe and I finished Breakpoint. Yes, you know where it's going. We finished Breakpoint, and our next game was supposed to be Tiny Tina's Fantasyland?
Tiny Tina's Wonderland.
Whatever, yeah. And I'll tell you, so we played
by the way,
Tiny
before,
Tina.
Before you go on.
Yeah.
I know an individual who listens to our show who's been recommending that game for a while. I'm very sorry, man. We tried.
Okay, yeah. So the thing is, we played the Tiny Tina DLC for Borderlands 3.
Yes, I believe it was.
Yeah, and that was kind of short. And honestly, I realized what was fascinating about that game to me was that on some level, it was Tiny Tina working over the sadness of having lost. Oh, what's his name? Was it
Roland?
Lance? Roland,
yes.
Of having lost Roland, right? And the whole DLC is basically Tina trying to get over the fact that Roland is gone, right? I thought that was a really poignant way to set up such a ridiculous thing. Probably one of the more poignant things that any of the Borderlands games has done.
Oh,
right?
No, that was great.
Right?
That was a wonderful idea and a very... For a series that is generally defined as goofy, silly, over the top, it was surprisingly nuanced and interesting.
Yeah, and the thing is, after playing all the Borderlands games up to that point, the Tina's fantasy world was kind of like a nice little break apart, right? But to make a whole game around it, where really you're just playing Borderlands that you're not really invested in. At first, I was kind of curious. I thought it was neat. But the thing is that the characters that we're actually playing are kind of boring and nondescript. There's a constant chatter going on in the background to the point of which that I've actually like zoned it out. Like I'm not even, and I realized that I got to a point where I had zoned it out so much, and there's so much constant commentary to the game from like, you know, the people who are playing the actual game that were the characters for, and the bad guys, and I just checked out. I just like there was a moment we were playing where I think we went like maybe like 10 minutes without saying anything to each other, and I said to you, "Hey, how you doing over there?" And you were like, "Oh, I'm just shooting some things." I'm like, "Okay," and I just realized that we were just going from point to point, looking for things to shoot, and that we were bored. I was bored. And Joe almost fell asleep.
No. Not almost. I did fall asleep a couple of times. In that 10 minutes, I fell asleep a couple of times.
Yeah,
I mean, not fell asleep
like
snoring, but I like my eyes closed and my head went down and I snapped up and I went, oh, I don't care.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that we're so not engaged. And like, it's okay to play like a fast and loose game, but it's almost so loose that we're just like, yeah, whatever. We'll go there. Yeah.
I think for me,
yeah,
I think the Borderlands formula has run its course. I think I'm just, and look, part of that is probably because we came off one of the most narratively rich and interesting and rewarding games I know that I've ever played, which was Baldur's Gate 3. And then Breakpoint was kind of
Breakpoint was so revised,
but it was also the break from that, not to use a pun, but that was okay. We just played something that was really engaging and you paid attention to and wrestled with. And then we went to Breakpoint, which is just,
and we made fun
execute
of
people.
Yeah. And we made fun of it like crazy.
Yes.
And when I attempted to have a serious decision, Joe was having none of it.
Right. Yeah. That was the thing. I'm just like, no. But, and then you had said, well, should we go back to Baldur's Gate? And I want to forget more of that game before I go back to it. I want more of that to fade out a little bit. So I want a little more time with that. So that was why, I don't know what we're going to end up playing. I mean, we're going to try Back 4 Blood. I think that's what because it's free.
And there's still Deep Rock Galactic, I think.
Deep Rock Galactic is down to $9. So, when it's sub $10,
but either way,
bust,
yeah. So it's, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sad. I'm sad that I didn't find Tiny Tina more enjoyable. But when both of us are bored within 2 hours of playtime. I mean, we did not play it for long, and we were already kind of... And plus, I have to say, I don't think it's visually very interesting. It felt very... I mean, I know that it turns the color, but... It felt like a DLC.
And honestly, and you pointed this out, I thought Tina was older and voiced differently, and it's
because
same
in the
character.
In the last Borderlands, which is like the future one, where it's like all new characters, you meet Tina and she's like an older, more weathered Tina. She's not like the little like nutty kid anymore. She's still nutty, but she's not the little nutty kid anymore. Whereas this, you've gone back to the Tiny Tina from the early Borderlands, and it's like, well, okay, so we've gone back to the annoying Tina. So yeah, it just didn't do it for me.
Yeah. I that character cannot work for a whole game for me. Just can't.
Yeah.
Not like this. Not in this context. So, yeah, I recorded it. I doubt I'm even going to post it. But I recorded it where I'm like, yeah.
Well, because it's boring. Honestly, that's what it is. Because we aren't engaged. So it's just like
it might be fascinating to hear us degrade over the course of. I think it might be 2 videos, possibly 90 minutes total. It might be funny to hear us going from like, okay, here's the mechanics to what, within one.
Oh yeah, and then the realization that what's her name is not there.
Yeah, Moxie. Yeah,
there's
no Moxie.
Moxie. Yeah, there's no Moxie.
Yeah,
there's no. Yeah, and it's kind of like, oh, okay. Like a lot of that humor is missing for me.
And I'm sure someone will say, "Oh, you need to play for another." No, I'm not. I don't.
You need to play for another 6 hours, man. 6 hours will get you there.
Look, to go back to Stalker momentarily, because I can tie
Yeah.
everything back to Stalker one way or another. There was a individual who I said, "Oh, I was talking about, art house movies and very long films and everything else. And this is not an individual who's into that stuff." And I said, "Well, do me a favor." I said, "Just try watching this movie called Stalker. And see, it's long, it's slow, but it's beautiful in terms of its cinematography. It's just a wonderful film. So give it a try." And this person, to their credit, said, "Okay, I'll try it." And then I got a screenshot from about 20 minutes into the film where the stalker's wife collapses and is having this almost psychotic break. And the accompanying text was, "Yeah, I can't make it past this." And I went, "Okay." I said,
out of curiosity, was there a reason?
because I think it was just not a type of look. And so, and this comes up in the thing that I did with Doug on it. And Doug's like, "Oh, you have to give it more time." And I've heard people say, "No, you have to give it an hour." And I'm like, "No, I'm not going to tell somebody that they have to give it an amount of time."
Yeah.
I often say in my reviews, you should know 10 to 15 minutes in, and there are rare exceptions where I'll say, no, you should give it a little longer. But most times, if you're not into something in some small amount of its total play, whatever runtime, then just stop. That's fine.
Yeah.
I credit this person for trying. Most people would say, I'm not watching a subtitled Russian film that has a philosophical debate between three people where they stand around a field for a while talking about the nature of art and humanity. Most people won't even bother. That somebody attempted it for 20 minutes and realized it wasn't for them, hey, good for you. Check out.
Oh, good. Hey, listen, those movies. My wife and I give every comedian 10 minutes.
Well, and that's
one
it,
of us,
right?
If one of us doesn't laugh in 10 minutes, we're in the wrong place.
I shouldn't have to play a game for 4 hours to get it. I should know right away. Now, there are exceptions to that. Like with Baldur's Gate, we didn't know the mechanics. Yes, that took a while because we didn't understand the game. You have to, like, I'm not gonna stop playing a game until I have a grasp of it. And then if I feel like, okay, I know what I'm doing and it's still terrible, then I'm out. But yes, if something is, but Tiny Tina is not that. It's so simple. There's nothing to grasp. It is just running and shooting.
It's just go here, shoot, go there, shoot, go there,
right.
shoot. Yeah.
So if you're bored of that in an hour, stop playing it. Just stop playing it. And fortunately, we didn't pay anything for it. It was part of the PlayStation Plus thing.
Yeah, and and I think for me, it's like I'm actually playing a video game without Joe in the morning. I'm playing 20 minutes of Not Borderlands. Overwatch, yeah.
Cowboy Overwatch.
I'm playing Overwatch for about 20 minutes. Overwatch 2. And I'm only doing it because it honestly, it's like drinking a cup of coffee. I get to the end of that 20 minutes and I'm just like, my nervous system is like, wah! Right? And I'm like, oh, I'm really awake. But what's funny is that, like, you can play that game, and even though you're just doing different boards, it is so tense and it is so to the wire that, like, when I play for 20 minutes, I set a timer for myself. It doesn't feel like 20 minutes. It feels like I'm playing for an hour. And yet I could keep playing because it is that kind of addictive balls to the wall, balls to the wall, balls to the wall. Whereas, like, when you play Borderlands, you're kind of like, the vehicles are sluggish, the weapons are sluggish. You're kind of floating around. You know what I mean? Like the controls don't feel immensely sharp. Like, it doesn't feel tense in any way, shape, or form. Like, there's nothing to the story. Like, at least with Borderlands, with the actual Borderlands games, like, not the mostly it's a new Tina game that's very floaty, very pointless. Whereas the Borderlands games, at least there was humor, and at least there were kind of weird locations and funny personalities that would pop up, and then there was the occasional absolutely absurd quest, and you were kind of curious to see how things were going, but the Tina game doesn't have any of that for me.
No.
It's just
No.
And
No.
the combat could be better. When I first started playing, I thought that it was actually going to be more fantasy oriented. So I thought it was going to be based around, like, magic and melee. But then you get there and you're like, oh no, it's just another shooter. Like, okay, I thought we were actually going to have to fucking melee our way through this. But no, it's like, oh no, you've got your crossbow. And you're like, I don't have a crossbow. You gave me a fucking pulse rifle. I was like, this is just another shooter with a very different skin. This was a cheap game to make is what it was. So I'm glad. I hope that it works for somebody. I know that it does not work for me.
Yeah, it's... I think if it had been less of just a fantasy skinned Borderlands, maybe it would have engaged me more because I would have had to struggle more with it. But the fact that it just was literally, I mean, I had a sniper rifle.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think that, honestly, you know what? I think the second we got guns was when it fell apart.
Yeah.
I think up into that moment when we actually were like being forced to sword things left and right and use our magic, we were like, oh, okay. And then you got to a point where you're like, it's not magic. It's a grenade. This is your shield. This is your gun. It's Borderlands.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where it fell apart for me.
It did.
So who the fuck knows where we'll go next? But what have you got, sir?
Hey, we'll try Back for Blood. I mean, I'll try. It says it's free. We'll try it. Whatever. Okay. So, oh man. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. This is, how to set this up properly. For years, I have heard of an anime, a 4-part anime OVA called Mad Bull 34.
Oh, I think I've heard of this.
Yeah, probably almost everybody has. And I remember hearing that this was a example of like shock anime and crass, over the top, and you know, okay.
Oh, wait. I'm reading the book right now.
Okay, so this is so it's a manga which I've never read.
Yeah.
That was then adapted into a 4-part series that was released in 1990.
Wow.
And the basic premise.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you?
Oh no, I'm looking at the poster. This already looks hilarious.
Oh yeah, with the woman in the stockings with no head.
Yeah, and then the cop and the
Yes. So now you can watch this thing in its entirety on archive.org. And that's where I've been watching it, and it's 4 parts, and I've watched the first 2. Now, I'm just trying to figure out it's because this is such a specific thing to have to explain.
Okay.
So, the first episode's title is Hit and Rape. Okay?
What?
Yes. That's the title. Hit and Rape.
Okay.
Right?
Go on.
Now, the only way I can rationalize what this thing is, because the weird part is I can't find, unless anybody knows, feel free to tell me, I cannot find a lot of background on how this manga and then this show came about. I know it's based on a book. The book is largely, from what I understand, the same as the 4-part series is.
Okay.
But I don't know what the genesis is of it. Now, because this thing, the only thing that makes sense to me, that would explain what this is that the original Japanese creator, because the manga was written in 1985. Now, I meant to look something up. When did Dirty Harry come out? Dirty Harry is 1971. So Dirty Harry's 71, and then there were a series of movies that came after it that were all around the Harry Callahan character. I'm looking to see what the other films were. Dirty Harry character. Here we go. I'm curious because I think it was 4 movies. Okay, here we go. Films: Dirty Harry, Magnum Force, The Enforcer, Sudden Impact, Deadpool. So what's that? 5. So it looks like there's 5. What was the last one? Oh, these went into 88. So these went past the point where the original manga was written. See, and that makes sense to me. So the way that this series makes sense as it is presented to us is that somebody said, okay, the things that people want are a lot of sex and violence. And what is the American ideal cop? And they looked at Dirty Harry. And they said, okay, it's the mid-'80s. What is the most crime-ridden city that everybody will understand?
New York.
Oh, New York, right? Porn theaters everywhere, 80s New York. In that vein, this makes sense almost as a parody of that idea. Because the violence and sexual content is so far over the top that it is inexplicable to take seriously. It is so offensive in the way that it treats women, in its portrayal of what American police are. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not defending American police by any stretch. But a cop like Mad Bull would not be able to stay on the force for very long. And certainly wouldn't have a hearing with evidence of him murdering people and be acquitted the way that he is. It almost is a joke. But I don't think most people could make it through this series. I'll just say okay, so series starts out. So episode 1, which as I said, it is, and I'm not kidding, it is called Hit and Rape. Series starts out and we meet a young Japanese detective who is joining the 34th precinct of New York City, which is supposed to be the most crime-ridden, the toughest precinct around, and so, they need somebody. He's a very highly decorated officer, he's great marksman, all the rest of it, very, very well respected. And this is the intro we get explaining what the world of Mad Bull 34 is. So I will play this.
The Statue of Liberty, a powerful symbol of the principles on which America was founded. But in modern-day New York, there are many who would abuse those principles. It is the job of the New York Police Department to keep these elements under control.
The 34th needs new recruits of your caliber. Your grades from the academy are the best I've ever seen, but this is a tough neighborhood, so you'll need to keep your wits about you.
Yes, sir. Don't worry, you can rely on me, sir. I'll do my best to uphold the good name of this precinct. Now I have to get out on duty. Jeez, I sure hope I don't end up like him. The guy's a disgrace to the force.
Hey, kid, give me my hat back, will ya? Come on, kid, just give me the hat.
Listen, mister, I got a name and it ain't Kid. It's Dizaboro Eddie Band.
Okay, so your name's Dizaburo.
So, you got a name?
Around the precinct, I'm known as Mad Bull, but my real name is John Estes. Friends call me Sleepy.
Shit, this guy's my partner.
I bet you're pleased to get me as your new partner, hey, kid? I mean, Dizaburo.
Oh boy, this really sucks.
Welcome to the precinct.
Yeah, thanks.
Now, physically, Mad Bull is like Zangief, like a Jet Black size. And Diceboro is the size of Radical Ed. So
Okay.
they have this huge disparity in their size. Mad Bull is a big, broad, looking guy. And then Diceboro is kind of, almost looks like Steve Gutenberg from Police Academy. Imagine him, but shorter. That's what Diceboro is. And sure enough, of course, he ends up with Mad Bull, and they immediately go out on the street, and within 15 seconds they encounter a robbery that is being perpetrated by two individuals wearing hockey masks on roller skates, and they've robbed a convenience store, and they are trying to escape. And we get this scene where we immediately see Mad Bull's version of here's how I handle robbers.
All right, you're both under arrest. Throw down your weapons immediately.
Hey, fuck you, Junior. Wait till you get off giving orders.
Fucking kid.
I didn't know they were recruiting boys onto the force. I bet you're shitting your pants.
All right, amigos, let's just cut the funnies. Drop your weapons and get your hands in the air, or you ain't gonna live to see this afternoon.
Hey, screw you.
Sleepy!
Now,
Hey, fuck you, Junior.
yeah, that is a great. Now, when I tell you that the scene where he shoots these guys, this is not just he shoots them. He evaporates their faces, and it is very graphically shown. There is gore unlike most things I've ever watched in this otherwise grounded series, at least in the first episode, where their heads just get erased in red. Like there's a neck with no head on it. You see all the bits and giblets come off. It is as violent a scene as I've ever seen in an anime series, right after he tells them to surrender and then just shoots them. So the gore immediately is way past what I expected. Again, I'd read that this series had this stuff, but until you see it, I just thought it meant, you know the scene in Ghost in the Shell where she shoots the guy in the office and his head just detonates?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like that, but it's constant. Ghost in the Shell, it doesn't do it a lot. It maximizes the effect. In this show, it's all the time. The gore is just 100 times more than it should be for what this series you would think would be. Okay?
Okay.
So after this happens, there's a woman who one of the guys who had already been shot was trying to take hostage, and he's pointing the gun at her, and she's traumatized, and she goes into shock, and she grabs onto Daisaburo, and he's trying to figure out how to kind of help her because she's in shock. And we get this exchange, which, again, this is within the first, I'm looking at the scrubbing through, the first 7 minutes. This is 7 minutes into this film, and we get this.
All right, let's get out of here.
Wait, this girl's gone into shock. She's frozen up and she won't let go of me.
She'll thaw out if you stick your finger up her ass.
What?
Oh
You
my
gotta
God.
be kidding. Oh, well.
Now, before I continue this, he does it. So I'm going to play the
Oh
rest.
my God.
Oh, yes, he does it. So here we go.
Get off me, you creep! What are you, some kind of pervert?
Oh,
Hey, what are you so uptight about?
Well, what do you fucking think? I'm wondering what would have happened if that creep had shot the girl.
He wouldn't have shot her. Once she was dead, there'd be no reason for us not to blow his head off.
Yeah, but as I recall, you went straight in and blew his head off anyhow. You know, technically that makes you a murderer.
Hey, kid, that's bullshit. The guy was just some kind of low-life punk. It's like the Wild West out here. If you live by the gun, you can expect to die by it. Those two hoods just got what was coming to them, that's all.
I'm beginning to understand why you're known as Mad Bull. But God knows how you came to be a policeman.
Now, that whole clip is the show. Like, the whole thing. So he does jam his finger up her ass, which does pop her out of her shock, and then she flips out, of course. But the fact that it happened, and then the exchange,
Did you get to the train sequence where they're dressed as nuns?
Oh, no. I've watched the whole first 2 episodes.
Okay.
So, no, we're not there yet. You see what I'm saying?
I just jumped on YouTube to see some of the gore.
All right.
And yes, the gore is hilarious.
Well, wait a minute. So you're on the first, is it the entirety of the first episode?
No.
Oh.
It's just a scene.
All right. Well, hold on. If you
Yeah.
want to see all of it, here. Because I want you to go to, I was going to say this, but I didn't realize you were going to, the gore is unbelievable. Right. So that link will take you to all 4 episodes that you can watch. I mean, they're in low quality because I don't think this has ever gotten a high definition release.
Oh,
but
my
go
God.
to.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't understand how you can't enjoy a series like this.
Well, okay.
This is like someone watching all those New York
that's
exploitation
the thing.
movies and then taking it too far.
Well, I'll tell you why. Because there are some terrible actual rape scenes in it, like really just horrible.
Okay.
And there's women getting beaten and stuff. So go to 9 minutes and 42 seconds though, and just look at that image.
This is the first episode.
The first one, yeah, Hit and Rape. See, that's the title. Yeah, go to 9 minutes 42, where Mad Bull thinks that Daisaburo might be gay, and to try to find out, he sicks a bunch of hookers on him because they'll apparently have sex with anything, and then he finds out that he wants to save himself for marriage. And he goes, "Oh, sorry, buddy. I just wanted to make sure you weren't..." He doesn't use the word gay, but that's the word I'm going to use. But yeah, go to 9 minutes and 42 seconds and look at that screen image, and you'll see what I mean about this is Mad Bull's attempt to, see if he needs... Yeah. So then we get most of the middle of this is there's a couple of sequences where they go undercover dressed as women, which is hilarious in Mad Bull's case.
Oh my god! I just saw that.
and that's to catch a bunch of, there are people running a shooting range that are giving what are presented as women's defense courses to women, and then they go out and they rape them. Because they give them derringers that don't work, I think is the idea. So they sell them pistols that don't work, and then they go in the park and rape them, which is probably based on Central Park and the Central Park jogger, that type of thing. But this is what I mean about it's horrible. It's a horrible thing. So the humor keeps getting offset by just these awful sequences. But then you see that Mad Bull is sleeping with prostitutes and stealing their money, and then leaving, and goes to another one, steals the money, leaves, steals the money, leaves. And so he is an awful individual, but he is presented as, well, he's just got some rough edges, right? You know, he's actually he's getting crime off the streets. So, you know, how much can you really complain about him? He's getting the job done. Like his whole rationale is, I can murder them because they were going to be committing crime anyway. Like just the worst idea of what law enforcement is. This guy is shown as heroic in this thinking, which is the Dirty Harry mindset of how things work. So the guy on the train that you were referring to, there's a pimp or something that comes back to town, this guy named Curtis. And the thrust of the episode then becomes he wants revenge on Mad Bull for basically running his hookers. So he wants to take back his pimp racket. And so Curtis, there's a woman, one of the many prostitutes that Mad Bull sleeps with and steals their money. But this one he seems to care about, kind of, I guess because he knows her name. So Curtis sets up a bomb with her, and Mad Bull realizes it, and it's a bomb where if the room gets hot enough, it'll explode, and he puts her head near it. And so Mad Bull says to Diceboro, we have to go save her. He's going to kill her. And so they're racing back, and they get to the room. Right before they do, it blows up. She is shown blown to pieces as she's screaming for her life. See what I'm saying about this? Offsets all the funny stuff. Is this is fucking horrible.
They just took it way too far.
Far.
They went into what is that? Oh god, what's the anime?
Like hentai type stuff almost, but
no
torture
hentai. No,
almost.
No. There's something that's worse than hentai. I remember
whatever
we
it
found
is
by accident. It's like
okay. Well, I don't want to know what it is.
Go on.
Whatever it is. So anyway, she gets blown up, and Mad Bull gets pissed because Curtis blew up, I guess, his favorite hooker. And then Curtis tries to cut the oil line on the car, but it fails to kill them. But they fake being dead so that Curtis will basically, that's the thing where they're dressed up as the nuns. That's where there's the fake funeral. So they follow Curtis's henchmen to the train. And then there's a big fight between Mad Bull and Curtis on the train, which is where, yes, he eviscerates his face against another train. And then there's a dismembered arm hanging off the thing.
Oh, yeah, I saw that sequence, yeah.
Right. Curtis is the guy whose arm is left. That's the pimp. And so in the course of it, though, Mad Bull gets gravely injured and ends up in the hospital. And before that, we had seen Mad Bull take all the money and go into a bank and give it. What you think he's doing is depositing it. You don't really know, but it looks like he's depositing it. And Diceboro sees him and doesn't really know what's going. Well, while they're in the hospital, Diceboro is waiting to get news on Mad Bull's condition, and he sees the bank teller come into the hospital, and they have this amazing exchange.
Excuse me?
Eh?
But Sleepy's your partner, isn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
Is it true that he's in a critical condition?
Aren't you from the bank?
How could this happen to such a gentleman?
Sleepy's a gentleman?
Oh, yes. Don't you know about him? He's been paying the medical bills and living expenses of victims of rape and other violent crimes. But he's also been financing a clinic where prostitutes with VD can go and get sorted out.
He has?
Oh, yes. He's been doing it for ages. All the girls he's helped regard Sleepy as a wonderful man, almost a saint.
They think he's a saint?
Yes, I think he's a saint as well. Oh, God, please don't let Sleepy die. He must survive. He must.
So that's what he was using the money for. Now it all makes sense.
This is supposed to offset all the terrible things he's done. This is apparently, This ignores the fact that the VD the prostitutes got may have come from him, since he slept with at least 3 in the course of an hour, so who knows. And apparently this is okay for, for rape victims. He's not raping these hookers, but he's certainly taking advantage of them. And the fact that this, I guess now it doesn't matter that he does murder suspects basically in cold blood. All that offset by the fact that he's got a clinic running and all these women think he's a saint. This is what I mean about this has to be a joke, because you can't possibly take this seriously. What morality would allow this to be serious? It can't be. So I have to look at this as a joke. But then we get to the end, he recovers, and we get to the point where he's actually dragged in front of an internal affairs hearing that he has to defend the fact that, so in the course of this show, we saw him kill the robbers at the beginning, blew the heads off the one and then shot the other. He kills 3, the guys running the shooting range thing, which he murders. And that was, the woman had actually set herself up intentionally to try to catch them in a sting. She was a news reporter, and he justifies killing them in cold blood because they had Uzis, even though they never had drawn them out. But his whole thing is, well, you saw their faces, therefore they were going to kill you. So I just killed them first. And that just kind of waves that away. And then what's the last one? There's some other one. Maybe it's the guy on the train. But this is the hearing, which, if you listen to this rationally, the prosecutor is completely right. And yet the way this thing plays, and Diceboro becomes Mad Bull's defender, to make it sound like the prosecutor's correct indictment of an out-of-control cop is in fact a detriment to public safety. So here you go.
Officer Ban, we don't intend to put you under oath, but we expect you to answer all our questions truthfully. You may proceed.
Yes, sir. Officer Ban, are you able to identify the officer standing next to you? Is that Officer John Estes of the 34th Precinct?
Yes, sir, it is.
Have you ever witnessed him shoot a suspect without provocation, or at any time witnessed him using unreasonable force to make an arrest?
Huh?
Do you recall the incident you and Officer Estes attended at the Jump Supermarket?
Unreasonable force wasn't used in that situation. He prevented the suspect shooting an innocent bystander.
Very well.
Now, before we go on, that's horseshit. The guy that he shot and blew his head off was not threatening the bystander. The second one was, although the second guy looked like he was about to die. So that's just a lie right up front from what we've seen. So that's bullshit. But let's continue.
Very well. What about the incident in the park when he shot 3 rape suspects without warning?
Yeah, but they were all armed with machine guns, for God's sake.
And so you're saying that justifies his actions?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. So that's okay.
Yeah, the accents are great.
This is the only reason to watch it, is this accent. And when we get to episode 2, the Queen's accent or whatever, the accents are the only really good thing in here, which the clips are better than the show as far as they're the least offensive thing about it. But let's keep going in the rationale that, by the way, again, the show, those rapists never pull the Uzis out. They find them after they're all dead. But apparently that's okay. Here we go.
Now, Officer Ban, I'd like you to look at a few slides. Are these scenes familiar?
The scenes he's referring to are photos of the things he's referred to just now that could not possibly have been taken by any camera we saw in the actual show, but that's fine. Whatever. That's. I'm not going to nitpick that, but it's basically showing the bodies, missing heads, the dead rapists, all that.
I don't know if it's art, but I like it.
Exactly.
That's enough. All right, now who took these photographs?
The Police Complaints Department. Why do you ask?
Bullshit.
Because it shows you're more interested in trying to press your petty charges than caring for the community we serve. You were at both incidents, and yet rather than lend assistance, you were preoccupied with these stupid charges.
Officer Ban, my department has an important job to do. By removing rotten cops from the streets, we are protecting the public. No one should escape justice.
What? You've got problems if you think this is justice. By removing this officer from the streets, the only part of the community you'd serve are the gangsters, pushers, and pimps.
At this point, you have to just throw any reasonable, rational assessment of this thing out, because That is ridiculous. Mad Bull is, in effect, a pimp. We've seen it. He goes and has sex with hookers and steals half their money. So at the very least, he's allowing them to be prostitutes, if not actively being their pimp. I don't know which it is, but it really doesn't matter. He is absolutely, top to bottom, a corrupt cop. And Diceboro basically says, no, he's not, which is garbage. So, but because, this is a completely warped show that thinks that what he's doing is supposed to be heroic, he is acquitted based on Diceboro's testimony. And then we get, this is the final dialogue of the show, where basically everybody's like, oh, it's a good thing you didn't get in trouble, and boy, oh boy, it's a good thing you're on the street. And we...
Damn it, Sleepy, I'm glad you didn't get fired. That's great. Without you, the 34th Precinct's arrest record would fall straight to the bottom of the league table.
Thanks for the compliment, Chief, but I'm sure if you fell in with that asshole, Rotheim, you'd get yourself promoted to mayor.
Get lost, wise guy.
This precinct is the toughest in New York, kid. There's more crime and more badasses in this precinct than anywhere else in this city.
Well, that's nothing to worry about with the toughest cop in the world on the beat.
Yeah, you got that right, but if you're the toughest in the world, I guess I must come a pretty close second.
And it's all okay because these are the cops that are going to defend New York in the 80s. And that's the end of the episode, where everybody is fine and it's great. And Mad Bull is a icon of the police force and the perfect example of law enforcement. So then I thought, okay, because that prosecutor's like, I'm going to keep my eye on you. So I thought, okay, let's see if this ever comes back. I don't know if it will by the end of it, but I went into the second episode and I thought, okay, where are we going from here? Because maybe this was just a one-off episode where this was extreme and it was a way to get people to watch it. Kind of the Game of Thrones thing where you came in for all the nudity and the brutality and then it kind of toned it down as it went on. So I thought, let's see what the second episode is like. And the second episode at least has a less controversial title because the second one is called Manhattan Connection. And in the second episode, we start off and immediately there is a scene where there's a guy who robs, I think, a convenience store, and he's on the run, and Sleepy and Diceboro are chasing him. He ends up in a park where he takes a child hostage, and then we see a woman come up and say, let the kid go, take me instead, don't hurt a kid. And Sleepy and Diceboro are like, don't get involved. But Sleepy is, I think he's hiding behind a tree, so he's not seeing what's going on. And Diceboro's got the gun on the guy. And so the woman trades places with the guy, and he immediately starts like putting his hand in his shirt and like putting his gun up her skirt and all this shit. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And then she whips around, gets the gun off him, beats the shit out of him, knees him in the balls, and then, subdues him. And then we see Sleepy walk up to see what's going on because he thinks that Diceboro took the guy out. And this is what he says.
You can arrest him now, officer.
Yeah, I will. Thanks.
Hey, Diceboro! Well done, you got him!
It was her.
Oh, yeah? Oh, my God, it's Perrine! Detective Perrine Valley!
So, how's it going with you these days, eh, Sleepy?
What brings you out here, Perrine?
I've just been transferred from Queens. This is my first day on duty in the 34th Precinct.
I'll be damned. Diceboro, let me introduce you to Detective Perrine Valley, formerly of the Queens PD.
What, you mean that she's a police officer?
This guy's Diceboro Eddie Ban. He's my new partner.
Nice to meet you.
So Diceboro instantly falls in love with her because she's a beautiful, tall, blonde female cop. And so then we see that they take this guy that they caught back for interrogation. And in between the scene where they get him out and they start interrogating, we get this cutaway to what we will find out is the main villain of the episode, who is a drug lord that Perrine, was that her name? I think it was Perrine. Whatever, the Queens cop, I'll call her Queens cop. That Queens cop thought she killed, but he survived the explosion that she ended up causing, and he is now basically Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget. He's in a motorized wheelchair. Half his face is cybernetic, and he speaks, we'll hear him later, in this Darth Vader type voice. We've gone from a grounded but hyper-sexualized and hyper-violent first episode to now we've gone full-on like Gundam villain. And in the middle of this, New York City Police Department. Because this guy, like I said, when you first see him, it's from the back and he's just talking on a phone. And I swear, I thought it was like their version of Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget. But then we get to, this may be my favorite. This is probably my favorite clip in terms of the level of profanity and voice performance so far, which is the interrogation scene. And this is their attempt to interrogate the guy who took Queen's Cop hostage and try to find out who is supplying his drugs. And everybody, please enjoy a wonderful rendition of New York Cops. This show should have just been called New York Cops. Here we go. And you're welcome.
Listen, you sad shit fuck. We know you've been pushing drugs around the neighborhood. Tell us who your suppliers are. I'll break your fucking neck, dickweed. Tell us.
Hey, Sleepy, take it easy, will ya? Hey, listen. Things will go a lot easier for you if you tell us.
Okay. Tell you what, I'll cut you a deal. I'll tell you for a fuck.
Hey, you cocksucker, don't use your filthy fucking talk with her. Watch your fucking mouth.
Hey, chill out, will you?
It almost becomes music to the ears when you hear profanity done like that. So they try to interrogate the guy. He's standing off to them, at which point a comically villainous inspector in the department, who you immediately know is aligned with the drug lord because he looks like, he's drawn or animated in such a threatening manner that there is no doubt that, of course, he's going to turn on them later. And this guy comes in and basically threatens to let the guy's kid, he knows the guy has a child, and threatens to like fuck with his kid. And so the guy turns over the information and they go and they do a stakeout for where these drugs, the drugs are being supplied out of a set of warehouses. And when they go in there, the later to be, I'll just call him evil inspector, tells Sleepy and Diceboro to go up on a water tower to keep an eye out from up there, and he and Perrine will watch from inside a car. At which point he immediately starts to try to rape her. Immediately. As soon as Diceboro and Sleepy are on top of the water tower, he's like ripping her shirt off and he's trying to have sex with her in the car. And the only thing that stops it from happening is that the actual drug lords, or the drug mules, whatever, show up and a fight breaks out and everybody's getting shot. Sleepy gets...
Out of curiosity, what is the point of it?
The rape?
Yeah.
Nothing. Because they want to show animated boobs. That's why.
I know that, but so the guy doesn't realize that there'll be any kind of blowback.
Well, there won't be. In this universe, there isn't. Because Sleepy got away with murder and basically running prostitutes. So, honestly, for the morality of the department, there probably wouldn't be any. Because it never comes up again. After that, it's not. She doesn't press charges. She doesn't say anything. It just evaporates into nothing.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Yes. Like I said, there's very few reasons for me to tell anybody to watch this outside of the terrible New York accents, which are the best reason to watch it. And that really is it. And that's the only reason I'm going to finish this thing, is because I'm going to capture more audio, and it is magical. Also, scenes like, I have to admit this one, where the gunfight breaks out. Sleepy is shot in the ass about 7 times. We'll end up in the hospital with his ass bandaged. But basically, he, at one point, when he realizes everybody has guns, he stands up, takes his pants off, and instead of underwear, he has a bunch of grenades covering his dick. And this is the explanation.
I think I've seen this clip before.
You've probably seen it. And this is what he says to explain why he's doing this.
They're firing at Perrine!
Look, there! The Meyer's getting away!
Hey!
Right! I had a feeling this evening might end up like this, so I used these grenades for a jockstrap.
Give me one.
So then we have played as a comical sequence where Diceboro is pulling grenades off of his crotch, and he's grimacing for some reason every time he does. And they blow up all the guys, again, into bloody morsels that you see. So the violence is over the top. So then we see that cuts to Sleepy's in the hospital getting his ass bandaged. And then there's a bunch of kind of comical things where Diceboro is trying to tell Perrine or Queen's Cop that he is in love with her. And the evil inspector kind of foils him. And it goes on for a while with all this back and forth. And then there's a point where you find out that she had that Sleepy's old partner, I think, was romantically involved with her, and then he got killed, so she's reluctant to get involved with another cop again. And then there's a sequence of Sleepy having sex with prostitutes, and meanwhile, Queen's Cop and Diceboro have gotten a tip-off to where the Darth villain is, and they go to confront him. And of course, that's the point where the evil inspector who's with them turns on Queen's Cop, puts a gun to her head, because he's been working for Darth Villain all along. And then now here you're going to get to hear his wonderful voice as he explains, what his plan is, or, what this whole episode is about.
It's been a while. What's the matter? Don't you recognize me?
So you're still alive. A pity. I'd hoped you were dead.
It would have been better for you if I was.
I should have known you were a crook.
Yeah, you should. Don Enrico pays better than the police department. You see, if you want the top people, you have to pay top money. Lieutenant DeMayer is a very useful man. He fooled you and your half-wit colleagues. Now, Miss Valley, you will pay for your stupidity.
Put me down, you bastard! Let me go, you asshole!
Oh, Diceboro!
Not you as well, Perrine.
I regret that we don't have time for a proper reunion. The girl dies first. Get her!
Now, they don't actually kill her immediately. What they do is they strip her, throw her on a table, and then 4 guys start to proceed to gang rape her. So you see what I mean? About every time.
Yeah,
yes,
there's a lot of that around. Okay.
A lot of it. And that's what offsets, because when he shows up, it is comical. He is, again, from like a science fiction series in what is otherwise supposed to be, at least it's presented as a straightforward cop drama.
But then they go straight for the horror.
But then they do stuff that is just horrible. And I skip through it. I mean, at that point, I knew what was coming. And I'm like, nope, just fast forward. I'll wait till that's over with. And then we jump back to... So Diceboro basically jumps in and tries to fight them. And, of course, these guys are all Mad Bull's size. And so they beat him until he is basically dying. At which point Mad Bull shows up and is able to kill everybody and beat them all to death. And they rush Diceboro to the hospital, where the doctors are like, yeah, he's basically going to die inside of 24 hours. And so then we get this exchange where Mad Bull comes up with a plan on how to save his life.
He has contusions on 90% of his body, and he's bleeding internally. He's also broken 3 ribs. To be honest with you, I'm surprised he survived the trip to the hospital. We'll do what we can, but I don't want you to get your hopes up.
Huh? So what are you saying?
The patient's only still alive because of his sheer will to live. But I'd only give him about 24 hours.
This kid's too young to die. Diceboro, you can't die yet. You gotta hang in there. Perrine. Oh. Diceboro, I never realized that you loved Perrine so much. Perrine, I gotta talk to you. Look, the doc said that Diceboro could easily die. Will you do me a favor and marry him? Huh? Look, I know it sounds crazy, but if he's gonna die, I'd like to see his dream come true. If he's gonna die, then at least let him die happy. Please say you'll do it. It'll make all the difference in the world to him, I know.
Diceboro saved my life back at Enrico's place. So if there's anything I can do for him, I guess I should. But...
It's Mike, isn't it?
Your partner Mike died in the line of duty 2 years ago now, but I can't forget him. He still lives on in my heart. Do you understand?
Yeah, I understand. I haven't forgotten him either. He was a nice guy and a great police officer. He always worked exactly by the book, so he and I made an odd couple, but we made a great team. Mike made the ultimate sacrifice. He gave his own life to save someone else's. What do you think he'd do if he was in your position? Diceboro is hanging on to life by a thread. He could go at any minute. If you marry him, at least he'll go to his grave with the knowledge that he didn't die for nothing. If you just pretend to marry him, it'd help. What do you think Mike would have done if he was in the same situation?
Yes, but...
Yeah, so we have Mad Bull guilting her into marrying a guy who he thinks is going to die because, you know, like I said, when you examine the morality of this show, it is impossible to take seriously. So that's why I'm saying this has to be it's got to be a parody or a joke or, you know, whatever, because there's no way this could be taken as straight. But she ends up saying, okay, she'll marry him. And of course, that somehow makes him pull through. He immediately, as soon as the priest finishes saying you're married, his vitals jump up and he recovers. And so then we get they go after the inspector and they manage to capture him, the evil inspector. Or actually, I'm sorry. Yeah, they capture him. He doesn't die. They capture him. And then we get to the end of the episode and we're back in the the hospital room where Diceboro now, because when they saw him the last time when they got married, his face looked like hamburger. Now, about a day or two later or whatever, maybe there's more time, he suddenly looks normal again, although he's completely bandaged head to toe. And so then there is this, again, incredible back and forth dialogue between Diceboro, Queen's Cop, and Mad Bull, as far as now that he's recovered, what he thinks they should do about being married. This is, number one, it starts off and it is incredibly soap opera. And then, of course, it can't last and Mad Bull has to defuse it. So enjoy this as the ending of this episode.
Hey, look! See? I'm really recovering!
It's really great to see you getting better. I don't mind telling you we were getting kind of worried back there.
Perrine.
Yes?
I know that we just got married, but I think I ought to give you this ring back.
Oh.
I have my own dreams of a proper wedding. In a church with all our family and friends. And after, I want to be able to carry you over the threshold. Yeah? So until we decide to do it all for real, I'll have to give you this back, okay? So please, will you take care of it until then?
Of course I will.
What are you doing? Trying to be classy or something? Dickhead!
Ow! Oh, you fucking bastard!
Sorry!
And then we cut the credits, and that's the end of the episode. So, now, I'm going to watch the next two, because I genuinely have no idea where the hell this series is going. But I would
love to know if there was like a series of movies that the creators saw and they were like, we're going to do that times 1,000.
Well, like I said, the only way it makes sense to me is, of course, there are many anime series that are over the top in terms of sex and violence. That's not uncommon. Yeah. You can find many of them. I mean, there's very well-known examples. But this goes further in its cruelty in many cases, which is the numerous rape scenes that just serve no real purpose outside of putting nude women into these films, which is a very common thing even in real films where rape is used. This is not like it's not a common problem. And then the idea that this cop is the hero, even though even in this second episode, you just heard him in the second to last clip acknowledge that, oh yeah, that guy, he played by the book, so we were an odd couple. He knows he's breaking these rules. He is a corrupt cop, period. There is no granularity to this character. And yet he is put into a heroic position, and any terrible things he does are waved away by the fact that he sets up a clinic to treat VD and prostitutes, not tries to stop them from being prostitutes, but just treats them. And in this one, you know, they don't really examine his motives at all. It's more focused on Diceboro's infatuation with Queen's Cop, who I don't even know if shows up in the later episodes. This may be a one-off thing. But it is such a bizarre series, at least in the first two episodes, unless something radically changes, which I can't imagine. I I don't know that I have been this actively confused by the intent of a series in quite a while. It is astonishing to watch this thing. Because, you're only hearing the clips. To watch this thing.
No, I speed watched through a few. It's pretty fucked up.
Oh, it is truly at times depraved. And then it will bounce into, but then you have those terrible accents, which are hysterical. I mean, I didn't even get them all. There was one where there's just one where when they cut the oil line in the first episode, I almost pulled a clip of it, where Mad Bill goes, "Oh, the engine's fucked," and it's just the way he says it is hysterical. I mean, that's all he says.
Hey, fuck you, Junior.
Well, and okay. The reason I even watched this was because I saw that clip in a YouTube video of somebody's game review where it's just the thing where a guy goes freeze and he's like, "Hey, fuck you." And he even cuts off the Junior part. And I'm like, oh, I'll bet that's Mad Bull. And sure enough, it was. And I went, you know what? I'm going to finally watch this because it's basically on archive.org so you can watch it for free. And I had read about this series. I knew that it was, I guess when I saw people saying that it was offensive, I just assumed it was because of things that were outdated, which don't get me wrong. There are things that are just kind of like, oh, okay, that's from the time period. So that stuff, not that big a deal. But this thing, I mean, there are parts that are just unwatchable because they are just so pointlessly cruel, which is basically all the rape scenes. But even the ones that aren't rape scenes, it's just stuff in it where it's like, yeah, okay, this might be appealing to a really disturbed 13-year-old, but nobody else would actually enjoy this. But then you get the terrible New York accents, which are just that does make it watchable for me. But I fast forward through, like that second episode, I fast forwarded through any part where I saw a woman start to have any nudity, just skip it. I knew what it was going to be, and I was right. Just go through it, and that's what I'm going to do with the third and fourth episode. But the first and second episodes are so different, even in their villains, because the first episode is, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's exaggerated. Obviously, these are huge muscle men, like slapping their bodies against each other and then shredding themselves into blood. So I'm not saying it's realistic, but it's the tale itself is an exaggeration of something that could be real, which is corrupt cop and a criminal who just wants to kill him because he wants to kind of get back the criminal stuff he's lost to him. Like, that's not, I'm sure some variation of that has happened somewhere. Not like this, clearly, but it at least could be seen as inspired by real events, more or less. The second episode has an Inspector Gadget villain, a guy with a cybernetic half face, and then a cop who has a crotch full of grenades that they are lobbing into a plaza and blowing people up.
He knew what kind of night he might have, and he was just using them as a jockstrap.
It was going to be a hot night. Hey, Diceboro, huh? Honestly, the voice work is sensational. Like I was repeating lines from it, but yeah. Hey, fuck you, Junior. Yeah, shit like that is great.
Be stuck in my head for a bit.
Oh yeah, I will be taking these clips and cutting them down for use in different things. but it is a really bewildering thing to actually watch because
it just feels like they were like, let's watch a bunch of these New York like exploitation movies from the 70s.
Yeah, I guess.
And then they were like, now let's turn it up to like, a 15 on the volume,
It's like Bad Lieutenant, but pushed way past, even what like a movie could do. So, yeah. So I that may be a reason for some people listening to watch it. If so, you can do it for free. But I would say, don't maybe watch it by yourself first before you do it in mixed company. Let's put it that way, because, I wouldn't watch this with my wife. That's for sure. 'Cause it's, it's a little rough at times, but the one thing that does save it is the terrible accents and the fact that I have to look at this thing as a joke. I have to look at this as like a parody, or let's just push the limits of bad taste.
I don't think they meant it to be serious.
Yeah, and that doesn't it doesn't make certain things watchable.
Yeah.
but it at least explains it until I can find if I can find an explanation. Like I said, I can't find much on where this came from as far as the background.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but I haven't been able to dig much up on it. But I will look, because I'm going to watch episode 3 and 4 and see if I'm sure there's going to be clippable parts of it to listen to, because just the amount that I pulled out of the first 2 tells me that, there will be more. But I haven't read anything about the summaries for 3 and 4. I have no idea. They could go into fucking space, and I wouldn't be surprised now.
Oh, I hope they do.
That would be great. Yeah, Mad Bull in space would be... It'd be something. So,
hey, kid, we gotta go into space. It's a good thing I brought this space suit.
We're the toughest precinct in outer space, kid. Listen, I had to fuck that Martian in the ass. Otherwise, she would have been scarred for life. Shit like that. Just stick a thumb up her ass and she'll thaw out real quick. And then he fucking does it. I mean, that was when I knew. I was like, okay, there are very few boundaries in this particular show, because when he said it, I was like, okay, I get it. He's a rough cop. But when Diceboro did it and you see him do it, it's like, okay, yep, they're not fucking around on this one. So
they are fucking around on this one.
They are not fucking around with this one. So that's Mad Bull 34. Now, unless something radically changes, I expect 3 and 4 to be very similar. The only thing that makes me... There's a 3-part series called Megazone 23. I think I talked about it a long time ago. And the one thing about that particular series is it has a radical shift in its art style and tone. It's the only time I've ever really experienced it at that level, where it was such a severe... You remember in The Authority where they had Art Adams, the regular artist was quietly left, and then they shifted artists, and it was a really big difference. Megazone 23 does that. And it really, and the tone of the show, it also it jumps into the far future at one point. Mm-hmm. And it was such a radical shift that now I never know if series are going to do that. So the only off chance that this thing changes is if somehow the whole framework of it shifts. But I don't think so. I've read nothing that indicates that.
No, I don't get that sense from the show.
But I basically now have to kind of put that caveat in with any anime series, because I've seen it done really well, really effectively. I mean, the way Megazone 23 goes from the one time period with an art style that feels very similar to like Ranma or something like that, where it's very exaggerated and caricaturish, to then jumping to the far future, and then it becomes very like Demon City Shinjuku, or however you're supposed to pronounce that. Like it's got that, or a Vampire Hunter D looking type of thing, where it's such a massive shift in the whole thing that it almost does. You almost think you're not watching the same thing anymore until you realize, okay, no, it is the same framework, because not only do they do this massive time jump, but also the series art style changes so dramatically, and it's really interesting, and I think it's effective. But now every time I watch something, I have to be ready for, okay, there could be a humongous change in what happens here if they decide to do something different. But as you said, I don't think that's the case with this.
Most shows try to keep it consistent.
Right. It's the only time I've encountered it at that scale, which is, I think it's fantastic. I really thought that was a brilliant way to really shake you up and very clearly indicate that there's been a big change in what's going on. I think it works very well. I've never seen it done the same way anywhere else. But that's the one thing where now I say, okay, unless something changes drastically, then I expect that this will be largely a series I will watch once, pull very funny clips from, keep those clips, and never want to watch again in my life.
So it's like an amusement park in New Hampshire.
It is a single serving amusement park. Exactly. So yes, we've circled back to the beginning. Mad Bull 34 may be a one-time ride for you that you realize that the half the bolts holding the roller coaster together are missing.
Yeah, and then the guys running the rides try to sell you drugs.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And then justified is saying, well, it makes the roller coaster more fun, therefore this criminal offense is justified. That's Mad Bull 34. So like I said, you can watch it on archive.org. You don't have to spend a thing for it, but be aware it is for select audiences only, I will say, and I will leave it at that. On that note, thank you for listening, and we're going to go ahead and get out of here, and whatever entertainment you decide to indulge in, enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk to you next week. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.